What's up, Jared Leto fans? All you fucking hot Jared Leto fans. I actually follow him on TikTok. Guys, it's like 7 in the morning here for me, okay? I follow him on TikTok. He's great. At least this movie's not fucking Madam Web. Let's talk about Morbius with my good friend Brian over there and my co-host from the Lastercast, another good friend, Dr. Zayas God, Danny Torkel. Danny, you've seen the trailer for Morbius like 6,000 times, right?
It beat Mission Impossible Fallout for most times I've seen a trailer ever.
Yes. So, with that being said, did Morbius live up to the hype of the trailer that you have memorized and see in your dreams?
I think I'm going to be the odd man out here. I didn't hate this movie. I didn't like it, but
yes.
I did not hate this. I don't think it was possible to live down to the expectations that I had for it.
Yes.
And I didn't think so. When we were talking about Madam Web, we brought up Venom and Tom Hardy, like really going out to like take a middling thing and turn it into something watchable. I think Jared Leto and Matt Smith kind of do that with Morbius. Matt Smith, there is so much scenery that is being chewed alive by Matt Smith's fangs in this movie. And I found myself really like, not like enjoying it as a good movie, but enjoying it in the sense that like, this is not the worst movie I've ever watched. Like my problem with this movie is more that it had like 2001 special effects, and it looked like two clouds fighting each other for most of the movie. But
oh man, the Galactus effect. Okay,
yeah.
Brian, is Danny the odd man out, or because I actually did not hate this movie?
Not the odd man out. I think we're seeing the all in agreement here, which is kind of weird.
Yes,
and especially too, like going into this, watching it. I mean, I watched this before Madam Web. I think that's not the case for you too.
Yes.
I don't know, like just that Madam Web basically will elevate anything, honestly.
Yeah, no kidding, man. No fucking kidding. But you talk about Matt Smith and Jared Leto. Okay, a lot of people hate Jared Leto, but there's some movies where I'm like, he's really good. In Blade Runner 2049, I think he's great in Blade Runner 2049. Dallas Buyers Club, I think he fucking got an Oscar for that. I think he's great in Dallas Buyers Club. Yeah. So I mean,
Jared Leto had an Elizabeth Banks kind of moment in Hollywood where there was a time in the early like mid 2000s where it felt like Elizabeth Banks was in every movie. And I like Elizabeth Banks, but it kind of started to work against her where it's like, really? Like, are there no other actresses? And I feel like after Jared Leto won the Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club, that kind of became his thing where it's like, he's in Blade Runner 2049. He's the Joker. He's Morbius. And it was like, he kept getting cast for these things where like, I feel like there was like there was just like an overdosing of Jared Leto in Hollywood for a little while.
Yeah, I understand. Like, especially like him being the Joker right after Heath Ledger. It's like he was never going to live up to that. And then that movie's a letdown too. The thing is, right, like we're three white guys. People, if they watch both of our videos, they might be like, oh, they didn't like Madam Web because it's, about women. It's a female cast. And they like Morbius. And Morbius actually is ranked lower on Rotten Tomatoes than Madam Web, strangely enough. But I brought this up in my last video with Brian. The Marvels, that's another movie that got a lot of flack. That's another movie with an all-female cast. But I feel like that's a much better movie than Madam Web. I think that movie was targeted because there's like all these like white male guys that like want to just review bomb movies and they have a thing against fucking Captain Marvel in general. But Madam Web is just like this crappy fucking Frankenstein monster of a movie based on Spider-Man scraps. Morbius, at least, it's like kind of channeling Dracula and the idea of like creating Dracula through science. And it's one of the things that's good about it is that it's like very to the point, to the fang, right? It's very like, it's a very simple story. They don't elaborate. They don't try to tie in everything except for poor fucking Michael Keaton at the end. But it's a very simple, straightforward story. Now let's talk about the director. The director is Daniel Espinosa, and he's actually made a movie with Tom Hardy too. He made a movie called Child 44, which I think was about like fucking Nazi Germany. Have you guys seen that movie?
I have not.
I have not. I've heard of it though, but that's interesting.
Yeah, he did that, and he did one other movie where I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. He but of course, besides him, the movie is written by the two titans of screenplays, Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless, who in my previous video I said they did Gods of Egypt, they did Madam Web, they did Morbius, they did The Last Witch Finder or whatever with Vin Diesel. So like these guys seem to have a type. They're kind of like a, you know, Dollar Tree. Who's the guy that did fucking Blade and who wrote Blade? What's that guy's name?
Oh, the original Blade? Oh man.
He's a guy that he's written a whole shit ton of movies. He does a lot of comic book adaptations. Fuck, I'm gonna look him up real quick.
It's not David Hayter, is it?
You're so close to his name; it's very similar to that. Yeah,
Looking it up.
He wrote
David Goyer. David Goyer.
Thank you. I mean, because David Goyer wrote like Batman Begins. He like did the story for The Dark Knight, I think. So like he can sometimes strike gold, but these guys seem to just like be covering his dud movies. But I think that like for these guys, they probably had an ambitious story, but of course Sony just like mutated it, just like Jared Leto gets mutated with his vampire serum. So Danny, you seem to have some issues with his origin and the bats involved. Do you want to go into that?
Oh, I messaged you whenever I have a comic book question. I just message like our Twitter group chat. I'm like, explain this.
Yes.
No, because like I also think it's interesting that it's the same screenwriters, and this movie and Madam Web start almost exactly the same, where it's like, let's take our main character to a like distant, faraway jungle landscape for a like pre-credit shot. And so like Morbius goes into this cave, and like the bats fly at him. And then it's just like he's back, and they don't really. I didn't think they did a very good job of explaining what that was, or was he going back there, and it just felt like something that was tacked on in post, where it was like, we need a scene with vampire bats. All right, let's do a cold open in a cave in Peru. I don't know.
Oh God.
Was
it Peru? I was really thinking that the whole time.
In random South American cave, and it just felt very tacked on because they never come back to it. So it's like this cold open that they never come back to, and he keeps talking about the artificial blood, and he's going to go on the red, but they don't really do a good job of explaining exactly why he suddenly becomes a vampire. Like, taking blood from a vampire bat is enough to turn you into a vampire?
I mean, it worked for Dracula. I mean, here's the thing, right? I know that Brian over there is Googling what rainforest did Morbius get the bats from. Yes. And he muted himself, though. So, but what I was going to say, though, is poor Brian over there who's muted, I sent him a story treatment for a Sinister Six movie that would star Morbius and Venom and Agent Venom. I made this movie trying to like salvage all the scrap from these Sony movies. And I feel sorry for Brian for having to read it. But I think that that's what these guys that wrote this movie were essentially trying to do. Like they look at like classic vampire movies, like the classic Dracula story, and even just like Bram Stoker's Dracula from the 90s. And they're like, okay, let's tell a Dracula story. Usually they start off in a different country. So that's why they start off in the rainforest. Then you have to have a scene where like they're on a boat and the vampire kills off everyone on the crew, the last voyage of the Demeter, right? And I think that that's what they were going for. They were trying to tell a superhero movie via a like Universal Studios vampire movie. And it kind of works in a couple of different ways. I just feel like when you make a movie like this, when you make a movie like Madam Web, you have the idea of what everyone's expecting, and you don't care about character development. You don't care about logic. You're just like, we have to hit these story beats. You guys think that I'm onto something there, or do you think I'm just like pontificating for myself?
I agree. I think this movie was probably intended to be longer, and they cut a lot out as well.
Okay.
And I think they're trying to get to the point in some places where in some places the movie feels, like some scenes it feels extra and stupid. Other places it feels kind of rushed.
Yes.
But I don't know. And for the record, I was watching the opening on Netflix really quickly there, and it's Costa Rica, not Peru. So.
Too bad. Yes. Well, I actually was kind of bothered by the fact that he slaughters these men on this boat. He does reference it in one line later on where he's like, I'm never going to let that happen again. But these aren't like criminals that he discovers and kills. These are guys that like he essentially hired to be a security detail in Costa Rica. And then he just ends up killing them all in the very beginning. And go ahead.
They kind of say that they were mercenaries. Even the cops kind of admit, like, I'm not going to shed a tear over these dead mercenaries or whatever. Yeah, but they drew the line at the nurse that died. So I think I actually didn't mind that he killed these people because it's just kind of showing. I don't mind if these people were all dead. I think it just kind of shows you that whatever the monster inside him took over and he couldn't control it.
Yeah.
I think, like that was what the movie was about. It was just
didn't they also make up? Maybe I'm wrong because I fully admit that I was falling asleep watching this until I took a nap and then woke up and watched it. That those guys on the boat were like paid for by Milo, and that he was funding like the whole operation, and so like maybe they were just mercenaries.
Oh,
that
yes.
Scene, by the way, looked and felt exactly like the warehouse scene in The Incredible Hulk, in Edward Norton's Incredible Hulk movie, where he first hulks out and he's like going after these like bottle plant guys who are like bullies and potential sexual assaulters. And he like just rips the shit out of them in the dark. You can't really see anything. He's like pulling them out of the shadows. It felt very similar to that. And again, that was a movie that came out in 2010, I believe. So it's like we're 12. This movie was probably made in 2001 or 2020, and it came out in finally 2022. And it's like we're decades removed from these other movies that these movies look like, which is not a great thing.
Well, take this a step further too. Like this is the superhero prototypical stereotype origin story. It's you're introduced to the character. They're fighting an opposite morality version of themselves, and that's really it. Like this movie, the whole time I was watching it, I kept feeling that this is beat for beat exactly Venom with just a different setting and characters. Like it's really the same thing. It's just Morbius as the good guy, who's I guess Eddie Brock really is just. He doesn't want to kill anybody, and then Milo would be Venom, sort of, or in a way, but he does want to kill people. Or you can say that Milo is the villain as well, Riot or whatever it was. But I just like we said, I didn't really mind the movie. I didn't think it was that bad as it was meant out to be. And again, putting anything next to Madam Web elevates it. Yes.
Well, it's funny because in Venom, the main bad guy is what? Riz Ahmed, right? That's that actor's name. Right, yeah. He's in Sound of Metal or whatever. This great actor. He's in this fucking amazing HBO show, The Night of, which I highly recommend. They're able to score these like really talented actors to be in these movies that, like you said, Danny, feel like they were made like 20 years ago. And in this case, the special effects even seem like they were made 20 years ago. And it does elevate it. Like Matt Smith's presence. It elevates this whole fucking movie. I wanted to make that point, but I also wanted to, before I forget, Brian, Danny, you said that Milo hired these guys. When I was looking at I was watching this on Amazon, and Amazon has that trivia on the side when you're watching it. And it says that Milo, Matt Smith, references getting bodyguards to protect him from a Russian man. And they're saying that in the Amazon trivia that's a reference to Kraven, like Kraven the Hunter. They're saying that like it's the Kravenoff family. I thought that was kind of interesting. Did you pick up on that, Brian, at all?
I didn't even hear that line, to be honest. So
I guess
I like that. I mean, I like that better hearing a line like that better than, oh, that thing that in San Francisco.
Yes, which is a reference to Venom, right? Yeah, that's a little more forced, absolutely. But I wanted to talk about the talent in this movie for a second. We've already kind of talked about Jared Leto. Matt Smith plays a guy named Lucien. One of the things that's really weird to me, and I was wondering if this is weird for you guys too, is that essentially Lucien meets Michael Morbius in the very beginning. They're both kids, and they both have this rare blood disease. Michael Morbius just starts calling him Milo, and then everyone else calls him Milo for the rest of his life. Did you guys think that was weird?
Not only that, I believe he's credited as Milo Morbius.
Oh my god! Yeah, that is right.
The thing, why would they introduce him with the name Lucien, which is both a really cool villain name and just a better name than Milo in general? Like, it should have been like the opposite way. Like, hi, I'm Milo. No, you're Lucien. Okay. Very strange.
I feel like that scene in the beginning was so weird, and it adds nothing to the movie.
Yes.
So he just randomly calls him Milo. He said, "You're not the first Milo. You won't be the last Milo, or whatever."
Yeah.
And you know, they and he just runs with it. And there was a point where I was expecting it to pay off. There's a point where Matt Smith confronts like the doctor that was taking care of him, and he says that, "Oh, Michael was always the favorite." And I'm like, you call me a name he gave him. I was expecting that to come out to justify the existence of that scene, and this never happened.
No. Yeah, it's never fucking addressed. It's funny because you mentioned the doctor that sort of is like the father figure to both these characters. He's played by Jared Harris, who is the son of Richard Harris, who was like the first Dumbledore, this amazing British actor. I fucking love Jared Harris. I think he's an amazing actor. Which one of you two would talk about Fringe with me sometimes? Brian, right?
Yeah, me.
Yeah, he's in fucking Fringe. He plays this awesome villain in Fringe, right? He is like utterly wasted in this movie. Now, before I toss the ball back to y'all, I just want to point out one thing. Jared Harris plays the king of the father of Queen Elizabeth in the show The Crown, which is on Netflix. And The Crown is like really fucking good. I know I'm sounding like a little pretentious, and it's like a show that a lot of times just like women watch, but it's like really good. I'm learning a lot of British history. In The Crown, you have Jared Harris, and then you have Matt Smith in it too. He plays Queen Elizabeth's husband. He's fantastic in that, just like he is in House of the Dragon. And then Brian, I wanted to mention, we recorded our Fantastic Four kind of fantasy booking yesterday, and Vanessa Kirby, I had said that like I hadn't seen her in anything really besides like Hobbs and Shaw, but Vanessa Kirby is on The Crown too, and she plays Queen Elizabeth's sister, and she's like really fucking good. I didn't even make that connection until last night. Okay. So like they're able to get these really talented people, and it seems like they're able to get a lot of people from The Crown to be in these things. But like
there's also there's the Mission Impossible connection. Jared Harris is the villain. Oh no, is that Sean Harris? Wait. Is that him or his brother?
I think Jared Harris might be in one of the sequels. I know there's that guy, that fucking guy that's in the caves in Prometheus. Is that who you're thinking of?
Maybe. Yeah. I'm not. I know it's a Harris. I don't know if it's Sean or Jared. The guy who goes the fallout of all our good intentions.
Fuck, is that guy related? I didn't even know they were related.
I think they're brothers. But
okay, he looks like he'd be related.
Vanessa Kirby is also in the Mission Impossible movies. The last couple.
Okay, yeah. So Sean Harris is an English actor. Mission Impossible 4. Yeah, he's the guy. You remember in Prometheus, those two guys that go like walking in the cave, they get lost? He's one of those guys. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's really great in Mission Impossible. We're kind of going off on tangent, which happens when we talk about kind of mediocre things on here. But yeah, Matt Smith is kind of the thing that people will talk about from this movie. And they'll talk about how good he was. I love Matt Smith.
I would honestly say he was good in this movie.
Yes. And the thing is, there's other people in this movie. This is really mean, and I'm kind of coming off misogynistic, but I actually do think that like the female lead is kind of weak in this movie. Like, you know, she doesn't really stand out. She's just there to kind of be the girlfriend.
Yeah, right? She doesn't do very much. And we know her from Andor. She was Bix.
Oh my God. Okay, so that's a great example of how like she's much better in something else.
Yes.
Than in this. Okay. Guys, Tyrese was in this movie?
Yeah, and what did those characters add to the movie? Like, they didn't do anything.
Nothing. It's just one of those things, like I was saying before, where the guys writing this movie are like, okay, well, there's murders and this is going to be causing a stir, so we need detectives to be in on it, and like detectives that are looking into it. But it's like the scenes, who gives a shit? It's just boring. That's the part when you're looking at your phone, you're messaging your friends because you're just bored out of your fucking mind. And yeah, it's just fucking lame stuff. But I will say that his partner, at one point, they go into an apartment for someone that's been murdered, and he goes and he finds a litter box and he shakes it. He says, "Here, kitty, kitty." Danny, I have to ask you, does that make a cat want to come to you if you shake their litter box?
I have 3 cats, and anytime I need one of those cats at my side, I go and shake the litter box because that's what they want. They want more litter.
Yes. I know that when my wife wants to find me in the house, she jiggles the toilet handle. And I say, "Oh, it's time. Coming, dear." Oh, God. So come on, you guys give me some more too. What else? I want to hear your thoughts on Morbius.
I just had to say that I read that note this morning at 6 a.m. and I laughed out loud. Like, in my bed, I laughed out loud at 6 a.m. reading that line.
Good. I was like, what the fuck? Why would they come if you shake the litter box? I get it if you get a treat or something. Here we go. But Speaking of treats, segues, how fucking funny is it that Jared Leto is just squeezing blood packs down his throat like it's fucking icing on a cake? He's just like, yeah, give me more. He does it like 4 times in the movie.
Yeah, it looks a little weird. Like I don't know. It looked more almost in like a weird sexual way.
Oh, like he's blowing a giant. He's just like,
something like that. Yeah, that's what it looked like to me. And you're right, he didn't do it a lot of times.
Come here, I need the red, bro.
I think for me, this movie, like I think we've all agreed, it's not as bad as it's been built up to be.
No.
This movie leaves Netflix, by the way, on February 28th. So if you have never seen Morbius, you have about I don't even know what today's date is, but you have about 10 days before you have to pay for it again. So you might as well watch it while it's free. And Brian made a great point. This movie is short. It's an hour and 40 minutes. After after the 2 post-credit scenes, there's like 6 more minutes of credits. So it's like an hour and 40 minutes for a comic book movie in this day and age is brisk.
Yeah.
So this movie does they don't spend a lot of time doing exposition. They kind of get to the point right away. If the special effects were better, I think I would have potentially really liked this movie. But I almost want to ask the people involved what they were thinking with the purple and orange clouds that surround these characters, because it took me right out of the movie with this lame CGI shit that felt like it was 20 years old.
Okay, I actually have an answer for that. On the Amazon trivia, it says that was inspired by Pokemon. It says that like Pokemon, there's some kind of fucking Pokemon that do that, and that was the inspiration for those fucking clouds. I'm not making that up. I swear to God. It's a weird fucking source for a vampire comic book movie, but it was Pokemon.
I don't even know what to say to that.
Yeah, you've done the impossible. You've stunned me into silence.
Wow. Yeah. No, I love the randomness and the absurdity. I think we should also bring up the bad CGI and the fact that he uses bats to take out Matt Smith at the end, right? That's the guys that wrote this movie wrote Dracula Untold, and Dracula fucking does that in that movie too.
That makes it even funnier, honestly.
Yeah. Did y'all see that one?
I didn't see it, no.
Oh, okay. Wow. Dracula Untold, I think, was actually better than this too. And it had the guy that plays Preacher, and he's the guy that's like Tony Stark's dad.
Dominic Cooper.
Yeah, he's the bad guy in it, and then the other guy is the guy that
Luke
plays
Evans.
Luke Evans is Dracula, and he plays I like Luke Evans a lot too, but this movie, it's just, you kind of know everything that's going to happen. You can kind of tell the story beats, like, okay, this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. But we got to fucking talk about Michael Keaton if we're going to wrap this all up right now. So Michael Keaton got the short end of the stick, didn't he? In the modern superhero age.
I mean, Spider-Man: Homecoming aside, he's fantastic in that.
Correct.
But other than that, yes.
Danny, as a guy who's like not into comics as much as Brian and I, what the fuck did you think of that scene? What did you make of that scene?
Wow. It's I can't believe that was an actual line in an actual movie. Like, that feels like a line from like a 1950s comic book. Like, hey, we're all here because of Spider-Man. We should form a team. Or it was like even worse than that.
Yep.
And like, he's not even in the scene. His mask is on. So you know he's just doing like terrible voiceover after he shows up. Also, like, can we just go back to, he shows up, he materializes in the prison, which I didn't even know was a thing that like Doctor Strange's portal can do. And in this universe, they're like, who's this mysterious guy in a prison uniform in our prison? He can't be here. Let him walk free. He then somehow gets the Vulture suit, even though he built that in a different universe.
Right.
Using Chitauri technology.
Right.
With technology from Avengers, the first Avengers movie.
Correct.
Which doesn't happen in this universe.
Correct.
And also, the whole point of this movie is that Morbius is a good person and a good doctor. There's nothing in this movie that would ever lead you to think that at the end of this, Jared Leto is going to become a cog in a super villain team.
Right. Yeah.
Really. I mean, he spends the whole movie, like, everything he does is like risking his life and like his well-being to save people. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Totally agree.
That he'd be like, it's not like they even made any connection between Morbius and Spider-Man, where it's like, oh, because of Spider-Man, I have this blood disease.
Well, you know, it's funny because in our Madam Web video, we were talking about the non-creative people that have all the money that make these movies. They're the ones that like kind of have ideas, but they're not making the actual movie. Sony, just to put things in perspective, I think you guys know this. At one point when Sony was making a list of all these potential Spider-Man spinoffs, they had an idea for a Aunt May as a secret spy movie prequel. Okay? Like, I'm not even making that shit up. That was a movie that was on the slate. This is when like Sally Field was fucking playing Aunt May. Oh, Daddy just shot himself in his car. That's how much this affected him.
Madam May?
Madam May, yes. It's May time. No, it's just like I don't like it. It doesn't even seem like a joke. Like, who could come up with a fucking idea like that? Let's make a movie about Aunt May as a spy. Like, that's just the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. You know? And they've been like, they've had a hard on for fucking a Sinister Six movie for years, and they're just going to shove Morbius in there.
I mean, Amazing Spider-Man 2 was not even a movie. That was not a movie. That was a 2-hour and 20-minute advertisement for a Sinister Six movie that never happened.
Right.
And that's one of the worst comic book movies that I've ever seen. I don't know if I ever like got your guys' takes on that. We don't have to. But like, they have obviously been trying to do like a Sinister Six type team up movie. Like, poor Michael Keaton, wasn't he also like, what was the end credit scene in what was the end credit scene where he like meets the guy with the scorpion tattoo in jail? Was that from Homecoming?
Yeah, it was Homecoming. Yeah.
Like, so it's like they're just desperate to make this movie, and
it's a good idea. I think it's a good end game to have there, but it's just struggling to get up to the point where they can do it. And I think having these movies without Spider-Man in them is not helpful, really.
Right.
And I kept thinking, like, if they somehow interjected Spider-Man into this, like how the character was sort of created. I mean, my introduction to Morbius was the Spider-Man animated series. You know?
Yes.
And I know Morbius is not traditionally a member of the Sinister Six or even really a villain.
No.
But I just think, like, could they have put Spider-Man in there? Would it have made sense, sort of, in any way?
Maybe Spider-Man, maybe Tyrese and his partner, the unnamed cops, Keystone Cops in this movie, obviously they can't. Somehow Morbius goes up like 20 flights of this staircase using his cloud powers, and Tyrese runs up the stairs just as fast.
Yes.
So like maybe in that scene, Morbius gets to the roof and like Spider-Man webs him up and stops this, suspected murderer from getting away. And like, if you're going to at least go with Morbius going towards the Sinister Six, then at least the line about Spider-Man is kind of responsible for this, then maybe like, oh, well, Spider-Man is the reason you ended up in jail and you had to break out of jail to go after Matt Smith's character. And your reputation is in the dirt now because Spider-Man captured you and people think you're a murderer. So maybe that could have been a tie-in. But again, that would have required there being Spider-Man in this movie.
Yes. Maybe when the detective shakes up the litter box, a spider crawls out of it, it goes on his sleeve, and then bites his son, who becomes Spider-Man. Right? No, but you know what's funny is that, like, in the trailers for Spider-Man No Way Home, there was this one shot that people really focused on where Andrew Garfield is punching at something, but there's nothing there, right? And it ends up becoming the lizard. Like, when you see the final movie, it's the lizard that he's punching, right? That's what these Sony movies are, but inverted. It's like everything's happening around Spider-Man, but there's no fucking Spider-Man there in the final product. There's a fucking Venom movie. Venom's origin is very tied into Spider-Man. Like, Spider-Man's an integral part of Venom's origin. Not in there at all. Morbius, his origin isn't tied into Spider-Man. However, his like research into blood and radiation and stuff is tied into Spider-Man. And at one point, Spider-Man goes to Morbius because Spider-Man in the comics, there's a very famous story arc where Spider-Man has 4 extra arms. So he has 6 arms altogether. And Morbius is the one that's helping him. That's when I got introduced to Morbius.
Yeah.
So it's like they're making all this stuff, but there's no Spider-Man there to kind of tie it all together.
Like I feel like they needed to introduce these characters in a Spider-Man movie, then give them their spin-offs.
Correct.
If warranted. Even.
Correct.
But yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It is amazing. It is amazing to me that they have the MCU there as the template for how to do a team-up movie. Iron Man, there is nothing in Iron Man until the post-credit scene to tie it to anything else. There is nothing in Incredible Hulk until the post-credit scene to tie it to anything else.
Yeah.
Like, the post-credit scene, I think, in the Incredible Hulk is Thunderbolt Ross meeting Tony Stark at a bar. And being like, I'm thinking about putting a team together. Like, then you have Thor and Captain America that have, again, post-credit scenes, kind of trying to connect to different things. Like, Thanos is like I think Thanos, the first time you ever even think about Thanos is the post-credit scene of the original Avengers.
Correct.
And it's like they had a decade-long storyline where they were like, we need to establish 6 great characters before we can team them up. And then like DC was like, nope, Batman v Superman movie 2. And now like Sony's like, yeah, let's do the Sinister Six right away. We'll make all these movies about Spider-Man villains without Spider-Man involved and then somehow tie them back to Spider-Man. It's like, just follow the MCU template. It's right there.
Well, they are attempting to. I mean, when Iron Man came out, Iron Man was not a household name. He was a B tier superhero at best.
Yes.
And and I mean, I wouldn't say these other characters necessarily would rate that beforehand, but they kind of are following the MCU pattern here. It's just not working.
Yes. And now, unfortunately, I think that Madam Web and Morbius are going to be household names, but just because they're just like fucking awful movies, you know?
By the way, I wanted to correct something before. Madam Web on Rotten Tomatoes is at 13% tomato meter and 54% audience, and Morbius is 15% tomato meter and 71% audience.
Huh.
So people did like Morbius a little bit more.
Okay, yes. They have like common sense and taste. Yeah. No, okay. I'm glad that Morbius is like higher now on Rotten Tomatoes. But let's kind of wrap it up right here for a sec, guys. Let's take all the non-Spider-Man Sony movies. So we got Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Madam Web, Morbius. I don't think I'm forgetting any of them. I know Craven's coming, but I think that's all that's been released so far, right? Can you guys rank them for me?
I'll take a stab at this first. So I'm going to put Madam Web at the very bottom.
Absolutely.
I'm going to put Let There Be Carnage right above that.
Good.
And I guess I'm going to put. Oh man, this is hard. I don't know how to rank the first Venom and Morbius. I guess they're pretty close to me. I guess.
Yep.
God, I don't know. I might actually put Morbius at the top.
Whoa. You and I were on the same page up until then. I was going to put Venom on the top just because of Tom Hardy.
You guys keep saying Tom Hardy and you like his performance there. I actually think he looked bored in the whole movie. I think he also feels like he hates being there. Honestly, I really do think that. I think literally Matt Smith is the best thing about any of these movies, and that's why I'm
probably.
Damn. Oh,
that would require me. That would require me to go back and rewatch the Venom movies, which I have no interest to do.
Just don't.
Also, like, I'm almost 100% sure I fell asleep in the movie theater during Let There Be Carnage because I don't remember anything about that movie. I remember Woody Harrelson. Yeah. I think I would have the same order as you, Pete. I think I would have. Is Pete okay? He looks frozen and scared. Oh, all right.
I'm so shocked at my
I was like, oh God. Yeah. I think I would put Venom at the top, slightly over Morbius, and then way down there would be Let There Be Carnage and Madam Web.
Yeah, I kind of agree there too.